CL 650 presents your source for leading-edge news and information on today's hottest products and services. This is Experts on Call.
Stop, look and listen, baby, that's my philosophy.
And welcome to Experts on Call on CL 650. I'm Joanne Sutton. Today we're talking about insurance. As the largest insurance company in Canada, Intact Insurance provides protection for what matters most. And should the unexpected happen, it's good to know that you can always count on them. And today we're going to zero in on a type of insurance that comes up in conversation a lot here on the West Coast. It's about simply preparing yourself for... the quotations are coming out, the big one. And joining us in studio today from Intact Insurance is Patrick Magnuson, along with Andrew Tablotny of Laguerre Pelling Insurance. And Bill Adams is on the phone with us from Edmonton, Vice President of the Insurance Bureau of Canada for the Pacific and Western regions. I'd just like to say, gentlemen, thank you for joining us all today.
Hello, Joanne. All right, pleasure.
Glad to be here.
So, Patrick, let's start with you on behalf of Intact Insurance. Just tell me a little bit about yourself and what you do with the company.
Well, I'm Patrick Magnuson. I'm Director of Corporate Personal Lines with Intact Insurance for the Western region, which is basically Winnipeg or Manitoba North and West. So within Corporate Personal Lines, I'm responsible for developing the product and dealing with the brokers and the distribution and making sure that our product suits the needs of our customers. And you have a lot of unique products at Intact that we'll be able to talk about throughout the course of the hour. Absolutely, yeah. Oh, good. And Andrew, tell me a little bit about yourself.
A long-time Richmond resident. I've owned my business here in Richmond for insurance brokerage for the past 30 years, and I've just been involved as a broker for probably 35 years. So.
And your brokerage is called?
Laguerre Pelling Insurance.
Laguerre Pelling Insurance. Excellent.
Westminster Highway.
Okay. Well, we need to know where to find you. That's very important. And Bill Adams on the phone. Tell us a little bit about yourself and what you do for the Insurance Bureau of Canada.
Thanks very much. I'm the Regional Vice President, as you said, for the Western and Pacific region with Insurance Bureau of Canada, which is everything west and north of Ontario. So it's a large, diverse region with lots of risks and issues. Insurance Bureau of Canada is the trade association that represents the large property and casualty insurance companies, including Intact, across the country. And we represent the collective interests of the insurance industry to government, to media, to the public, et cetera. So earthquake risk is one of the more significant issues that we deal with on a daily basis. Excellent. And I have a feeling you've got a lot to contribute for us today. I might have a few things to say.
That's great. Well, thank you for joining the program. Let's just start with who can answer the skill testing question about what are the odds of another megathrust, earthquake, or tsunami happening within the next 50 years? Hands up. Who's got the question? Or who's got the answer?
I do. I attended a symposium recently, or last October, here in Vancouver. They finally brought all the various user groups together, whether it be emergency preparedness, the government, whatnot, and it was quite interesting. It came out of Bill probably able to speak to it as well. Is the number they were presenting for BC was 30% chance of a major quake in the next 50 years.
So it's really not a matter of if; it's a matter of when.
And how big.
And how big. Now, there's a reason we've invited Bill Adams to be on this show today, because a study commissioned by the Insurance Bureau of Canada has just been completed, and it estimates that the costs as a result of a large quake in British Columbia could be at $75 billion. So, Bill, maybe you could tell us a little bit about that study and what it entailed. And I know throughout the course of the next, 50 minutes, we're going to hear some of the results of that.
I'm happy to do so. And preparing Canadians for an earthquake is one of the 4 strategic priorities for Insurance Bureau of Canada. So when I said we deal with this on a daily basis, I meant that literally. This is something that we spend a lot of time and a lot of effort. The symposium that was referenced was organized by Insurance Bureau of Canada, really to try and bring people together to understand this issue much better than we do as a society, and the magnitude of it. This is the report we commissioned. We did so from a company called AIR Worldwide. They're one of the world's top risk modeling companies, and we asked them to develop a plausible, a realistic scenario of what a major earthquake off the west coast of Canada would look like. We also did one for the eastern region in sort of the Quebec City, Montreal, Ottawa corridor, but I'm going to speak specifically to the one on the west coast.
Certainly. So what kind of picture did they paint you?
It's pretty dire. It's $75 billion of economic impact. That's with a B, of which $20 billion would be covered by the insurance industry at current insurance levels. So that means, do some quick math, you're looking at a $55 billion unfunded liability that's going to rest at the feet of British Columbians and governments. That's unprecedented. We dealt 2 years ago with flooding in southern Alberta that people will remember. The total cost of damages for that was $6 billion. So you can see in orders of magnitude, this is unprecedented in Canadian history. We really don't have a concept of what this would entail and the implications for all Canadians, but specifically British Columbians who would be mostly impacted.
Okay, and Andrew, you have something to add?
Well, and the other thing that's really struck me at that symposium was that they're talking about a potential 2% hit to the GDP. Now we're talking about Canada, not just BC. I mean, BC's economy would effectively go in the toilet if we had major damage here, but they're talking about the whole country would take a 2% hit on the GDP.
Sure, even though it happens here, and we've seen that with natural disasters around the world. If it doesn't happen in your backyard, you're still impacted by it in some way. So some of the results of this study that was done, Bill, it's like put it into realistic perspective for us. And I've got some information here that says basically if you survive the earthquake, you need to be prepared for so many days or so many hours. If it hits here, you're going to have only a certain amount of time to get to higher ground. Basically, in Richmond, you could be wiped out. Or give us some of the paint us a little more of a picture.
Well, the reality is that we don't know what the scenario is going to be. There are literally hundreds of thousands of potential scenarios of a major earthquake off the west coast. So when it comes to the damage caused by the shake, which in the scenario we modeled was the most significant portion, you're going to have bridges and roads that are going to be impassable. There will likely not be a bridge in the days following in and around anywhere in the lower mainland that would be passable until they'd be all inspected. So literally you would be locked to largely where you are. You would have significant infrastructure in the airport would be down for days, potentially weeks. Port facilities would be impacted. There'd be little moving in and out of those. You would have pipelines, natural gas pipelines, et cetera, that would be ruptured or interrupted. You would have telecommunications infrastructure that's going to be interrupted for, again, is it hours, is it days, is it weeks? We don't know. But it is a scenario that is no British Columbian would have ever experienced, and it's very dire.
So it goes well beyond just your immediate home and your immediate family and not having enough water or not having a cell phone communication. It has global impact.
There's no doubt that when we've seen these events on our on television, the internet, when they happen in Haiti and when they happen in New Zealand and when they happen in Japan, it seems it's a far off land. It's somebody else's problem. But the reality is, it's going to be Canada's problem at some point. We don't know when, but as we said earlier, it's a 30% chance that we're going to be faced with that type of scenario in the next 50 years.
Excellent. So I guess if we're bringing it home, we're not here just to talk about all the devastation. We're trying to educate our audience and educate people. And when it comes to earthquake insurance for your home, I think when the big one hits, the last thing anybody's really going to think about is whether they have insurance or not.
Well, it's certainly going to be a good day for those people who do have it, because you need to think about those issues. We need to be prepared, and financially prepared is one aspect. The other part is physically prepared. So every British Columbian that's in the earthquake risk zone needs to think through those two lenses. Physically, what do I need to do to prepare for a major earthquake? And second is, what do I need to do financially to prepare? The last thing you want to be worried about when the earth starts shaking is whether or not you've done everything that you need to do in order to get through that and to recover.
Now, Patrick, we had a little discussion before we brought this program to air, and I think you made a very good point about a comparison to we all know how to do a fire drill.
That's right. I mean, we know how to do it, and our kids know how to do it, and certainly they do it in school. We do it at work. You're on the conference call, and you're on the 17th floor of your building, and you need to walk down all those flights of stairs, and it's a drill. But at least we know what to do, where to go, and we're prepared for it. We need to take that same mindset and move it into an earthquake scenario. What do you do when there is an earthquake happening? What steps do you take? And the great BC shakeout happens every October, and we talk about drop, cover, and hold on. And those are, it's a pretty simple set of steps that you can take that will allow you to, well, like you say, survive. So that's step one. And then step two, you move on from that. But you need to know what to do when it happens. And 50 years ago, or 60 years ago, I suppose, there was atomic bomb drills, and now we have fire drills. So we just need to change that mindset and move to, we live in an earthquake-prone area, we need to be prepared for it.
And we are grossly unprepared. So
we are grossly unprepared.
That came out at the symposium. I mean, New Zealand is steps ahead of us. The Japanese are. You look at Japan, and they practice all the time, and how prepared they are. And you look at the devastation. I mean, you're talking about tidal waves. You're talking about earth movements. It's we can't stand up against that, and all you can do is hope that you can hang on and be around for it when the time comes.
So basically what we do know is that, and I don't have all my geology and geography background, but we know that the plates are moving, and we know that there's pressure under the earth, and we know it's going to happen at some point.
Well, the science says that every 400 years we've had a major quake on our coast. The last one was in 1700, so we're overdue for another one, is what they're telling us. There's not just the West Coast one. There's zones in between Vancouver Island and Vancouver Island. There's a zone that runs through North Vancouver and out through Abbotsford. So the potential is there for a variety of different ways for it to occur. So it just depends which one actually goes at the end of the day, because the devastation, if it's on the West Coast, which is the common knowledge, is that's probably the one that'll go. Victoria is going to be really hard hit. There may be some flooding here, but the tsunamis won't be an issue for the Lower Mainland for the most part, but there could be some flooding. But the West Coast of Vancouver Island could be hit by tsunamis as well as the earthquake.
Certainly. And Andrew, you seem to be quite passionate about this topic, and that you've done considerable research.
Well, having lived in Richmond since '81 and have my business here and being an insurance broker, I was involved with the Insurance Brokers Association. So a lot of this information we've been preaching it as brokers for the last 5 years. When we went to this symposium, it was quite interesting to watch all the faces there of the various committees and people from different areas, and asking the questions we were asking 5 years ago. And so your broker's well informed of what the potential is, and it's scary for a broker what could potentially happen.
And let's be clear, I mean, earthquakes happen all the time. I mean, hundreds of earthquakes happen a year in our area. You can look it up on the Canadian Geological websites, and it's just about where they are, how big they are, and how deep they are. So I mean, you can look and you can see that all these earthquakes are happening. So it is, when we say it's a matter of time, or there's a 30% chance of one hitting within the next 50 years, I mean, we're talking about just this magnitude 9.2 megathrust earthquake. But there are earthquakes happening all the time. I mean, I think there was one a couple of days ago in Abbotsford that was quite shallow, and it was at the intersection of two streets. I mean,
correct, 3.3
yeah,
actually. Yeah.
So if that doesn't hit home as to how close they can be, and I mean, there was one in Penticton a couple of weeks ago. So I mean, it's not just a Lower Mainland issue, and it's not just off the coast, and it's not just the big one. Earthquakes are happening all the time, and they have a relatively small earthquake, depending where it is and how deep it is, could still have a damage. So
We all need to be more educated on this one. You're listening to Experts on Call on CL 650. I'm Joanne Sutton, and joining us in the studio today are the insurance experts, featuring Patrick Magnuson from Intact Insurance, along with Andrew Tablotny of Laguerre Pelling Insurance, and Bill Adams has joined us on the phone, Vice President of the Insurance Bureau of Canada for the Pacific and Western regions. We are talking about earthquakes, the possibility of the big one, and getting you to plan ahead and consider earthquake insurance. You can get more information online at intact.ca. This is Experts on Call on CL 650.
This is Experts on Call on CL 650.